Hello everyone. I am back and today we're going to have a wee chat about autumn and how it makes us feel. Now, I imagine quite a lot of you guys are like me. You love the idea of autumn. You could maybe even go out like me with a camera all excited and you snap the pictures of those autumn colours, the gorgeous reds and oranges, all the beautiful leaves. You know what, that only lasts as long as it takes you to get sick of picking them all up from all over the garden all the time. So I thought, right, do you know what? We tend to think of autumn as gardeners about what's dead, dying, dormant, damaged, that kind of stuff. And we stop looking at all the awesome things like the colours in autumn. So today, we're going to be honest, okay? There are a lot of things that might make us feel a bit sad about the season. It's cold, it's wet, it's windy, stuff goes brown, that kind of thing. But I'm going to try and focus on the positives as well, okay? So I'm going to try and, if you like, zoom out and we'll do the bigger picture. And also, just for a bit of fun while we do it, remember this? So I'm making this sound like it's Longmeadow and we've got all these different gardens. These are just spots in one garden, just our garden, because everybody has this. You've got all these different spots. I thought we would have fun with that again. So although technically the Sitooterie is the bit we sit in, I say this is the whole thing, this end of the patio, if you like, is the Sitooterie. And it includes this, the herb bed. Now, first thing you do when you look at the herb bed just now is you see the spaces where things are missing. So my parsley's missing because it's been taken indoors because it won't survive out here in the winter. And as I've said before, Kate likes parsley for cooking, okay? The other thing you notice is the chives are all looking a bit yellow. They're not dyed back. There's a lot of dead material there that makes it look worse. But they're not dead. They're still there and we can still cook with them, okay? So these are the things. The mint plants have been cut back for winter. The cold, harsh winds we've had recently have absolutely hammered them. They don't look fantastic, but they're not dead. They don't look fancy. They're not massive and bushy anymore, but they're still alive and usable, and that's the point of the herbs. And then there's this. Now, technically this, it's in the herb bed. It's not going to stay in the herb bed. It's getting moved because this is the blackcurrant sage I bought. Now let's have a look at this because it's awesome. It's far too big for this herb bed, so that's why it's getting moved. It's much more of a shrub because although it's called blackcurrant sage, it's technically a proper salvia, hence why it's so big. But just look at these beautiful flowers. Now, when I bought this, I bought it as a pack to do to do herbs for cocktails. And this was meant to give lots of blackcurranty flavour and aroma to the cocktails. And I have to be honest, I've never got blackcurrant off it. To be honest, it kind of tastes and smells just green, like that kind of just plant taste and smell. You know what I mean? You guys get it, don't you? So don't use it as cocktails, but it's just beautiful and I love it. It's one of my favourite flowers in the garden just now. I'm trying desperately to get good photos of this, but it's so hard to photograph because the colour of the flowers is so vibrant. A camera only has a certain dynamic range and it just cannot cope with how beautiful the colours on this are. Right, okay, what else in the Sitooterie then? So you can see then, the planters are not as full and green and lush as they were, okay? Again, it's too easy to focus on the fact that the golden tower, this elder, is dropping its leaves and it's getting really bare. It's basically turning into sticks. I could point you back now to the video in May where I actually sat here and this was behind me. Look at the size of it in May. So yeah, it was small in May, and before then, it used to be over where the herb bed is now, and it never came to anything. It was a miserable, tiny little thing that died back to a couple of twigs every year and then never really did anything afterwards. This year, it's almost as tall as I am. It's gorgeous. Yeah, it's going to die back, but looking at the positives, what's it going to be like next year? Maybe it might flower next year. It's never flowered before. That'd be interesting. Okay, where will I take you next? How about we do the wall garden next? I'm deliberately doing this massive big long shot because I just want you to see this. This is awesome. So this is the flower bed we worked on this year, and we widened it, and it meant all the flowers that were hidden under the schemia and under the gladioli and the massive foxgloves we had last year, they were all hidden, so we pulled them forward, which means look at it now. It's just gorgeous. But again, if you look at it with a pessimist's eye, okay, what you're going to see is dead leaves, bits of damaged foliage, foxgloves that have passed. All of that is true, and it is here. It is, it's all there if you look, but instead, look at the hebe. This is one of my favourites for the moment. It's just gorgeous. It's variegated leaves, light greens, dark greens. It's evergreen, so it's going to be here through winter. Look at these flowers. Again, I take so many photos of it because it is so beautiful. I love it. And it's not the only thing. It's in between everything else. Look, most cyclamen, violas. These guys are awesome. See, for autumn and winter, they just go on and on. They're gorgeous. And I think they're like little smiley faces. So they're fabby. And I'm really chuffed. The mulch is doing its job. There's much less in the way of weeds here. It's doing a fabby job. Now, I could be all negative about one thing that happened here. We did get lots of mad mushrooms because the tree is still there. You remember the tree broke? Well, we haven't managed to take it out yet. We will, but because it's rotting away, we were getting lots of mushrooms around the base of the trunk and up the trunk, and they moved. I know JB from Naturally JB was desperate for me to leave them. That's his kind of thing. We don't want mushrooms in a formal flower bed, so I dug them all up. So sorry for anyone that's now horrified, but you know, it's a garden. Yeah. So yeah, but I could be all negative about that. Or I could go, do you know what? That means it is the most beautiful, amazingly fertile spot if we're getting lots of mushrooms, because that's where they grow. So that's a positive. If you look for the positives, you will find them. Okay, next let's go and do the sun garden or the beer garden at the back. Now, think back to April, May, June. This was a crazy wash of colour. This whole area here is spring, early summer. It's just the way it goes here. But it doesn't mean there's nothing now. I mean, okay, the Acer has no leaves on it. But you know what? The good thing about that? I need to do some pruning, and that means I can do it now for two reasons. There's no leaves, so I can see what I'm doing. And two, the tree's gone dormant, which means there'll be less sap to leak when I actually prune the branches. And then come spring, it's had time to adjust and then get going in spring. So, way hey. The cherries have got no blossoms on them and no leaves on them. They're in pots. Bonus, because they're dormant, we're actually going to plant them out this year. We're going to put them in the ground because we're finding they're not doing as well as they could in the pots. So the whole dormant season, autumn and winter, it gives us a chance to move the trees and get stuff done. But what I love the most is this. In fact, I'm going to bring you in close. This is a mad thing, but I just love it, is this ivy. Now, confession, we just chose ivy. We didn't think about it. I didn't know that you got ivy that changed colour, so this is awesome. This was bright green spring, summer. It's now gone the most beautiful reds and pinks with the yellow, and it's almost, there's some of them here is almost variegated. It's so beautiful. And of course, big climbing clematis here that's barreling its way all around the fence, which will flower. I think it's about May this guy flowers. So this guy is the first one we've had that we haven't had to cut back. So we've got him through winter. It's just so exciting. We will need to tie him in though because he's going a bit mad. And all of these little pots, look, they've still got the alpines in them. They're all still going. So all in all, it's actually not bad, is it? To the vegetable garden. I'll explain on the way. So the vegetable garden. Now, this is actually one of the first places that makes me start to get down, or gets me down, however you want to say it. Because see, in summer, it's just green. It's amazing. It's so green and full. But as the year goes on, because you guys know I don't do a lot of stuff over the kind of winter period, it starts to empty. And what's there, like the beetroot that's in here just now, starts to bolt. And it's just a wee bit like new. The good news is, there's not a lot of beetroot left. There's about 12 beetroots left, and it's soup season, so this is going in soup. Basically, there's a big pile of this going in soup for lunch today. If you want the beetroot soup recipe, put a comment below and I'll share it with you. It's awesome. So that kind of gets to me a little bit. The carrot bed, there's 5 carrots left. At least 2 of them are like the size of my finger. One of them's like this. It'll have split. But you know what? There's the little carrots I planted have come up, and you'll see later on the ones in the greenhouse are looking good. So that means we might have some carrots, sort of early spring carrots, once the frosts have passed and stuff. But even if we don't, the positive of the veg beds just now, I've got the strawberry beds in situ, everything's ready to go, that's fine. These 2, when they're empty though, it gives me the chance to get some awesome compost out of my compost bin, get it dug in, get it all fed and fertilised, and let the beds get a chance to recuperate, ready for next season. And that's what makes all my gorgeous, glorious veg, because it has this period where I get to feed it and redo the soil and just kind of bring it on a bit, give it a bit of a zhuzh. So it's positive, that's a good thing. I've got to try and not just look at this as being just bare soil. Instead, I'm going to look at it as the beds are having a wee rest, ready to get going. Now, blueberries are looking awesome. I'm not going to talk to you about the blueberries and the currants and stuff just now, or what we might call the soft fruit garden, because there's a whole video coming up about this. I've got a whole awesome story to tell you, and it involves some new things getting planted. So that's coming up soon, so I'm not going to talk about it just now. What we're going to do is we're going to shift over into the container garden, because that is, I think, the biggest change, and there's lots of positives to talk about as well as how I feel about things. So let's go. Oh yeah, see when I said I'll explain on the way? It's a Kate thing, don't worry. If it didn't make sense to you, it's all right. So, starting off quite low down, on one hand, what we could say just now is we could go, it's looking a bit scraggly. The marigolds are all gone a bit leggy. There's not a whole heap left. The petunias are pretty much almost gone. But let's go, do you know what? What are the positives? Well, let's talk about the marigolds then. The first thing about these is, look at them. There's still loads of colour. When we deadhead, this comes back awesome. Yeah, they're a bit leggy, but what if I was to say this is actually the 4th lot of marigolds I've got out of that 1 packet of seeds I bought and planted in spring? Seriously. Because as soon as they pass, that's about 50 more seeds. And I just got to the point where we had just planted so many and I had no room for any more, so I was giving them all to the neighbours, and they're all now sick of them, so we're having to bin them. That's how amazing these marigolds have been this year. And when they're going, they're so bright and awesome. It's these little yellows with a beautiful kind of magenta-y sort of burgundy colour in the centre. It just looks awesome. I'm not a fan of the smell. That's the only negative I would say against them. But other than that, they've been fantastic. The petunias were great when they were here. They're passing now, but I've taken some cuttings. So again, we'll talk about that in the greenhouse. But you know, the Hebes are looking great. These guys don't flower at this time of year, but they're evergreen. I've got these gorgeous little kind of purpley tinged, the new leaves coming up. The other leaves are all green. There'll be buds on these soon. They'll start flowering soon. It's going to be brilliant. And this guy, you haven't seen this guy, or at least I've not introduced you to this guy. You may remember there used to be a big snakeback bark maple. Let's pretend that didn't happen. You might remember there used to be a snake bark maple here, but unfortunately he just didn't take at all. We got one season out of him and he just stopped producing even leaves. When we took him out the pot, he just hadn't taken, he didn't even have a proper root ball. So it's gone, unfortunately. We struggle with trees in this garden because of the wind. It tends to burn the tops of all the trees and they suffer. But our neighbours have got one of these. It's a black elder, and our neighbours looks absolutely amazing, and I coveted it so much. So now we've got one. And look, I don't think it should be flowering, but it is. Oh, I'm so excited. These things grow so much, like they get really tall in a season, so I'm quite excited about this. And I'm quite excited about the flowers, and then it'll get berries, and so we just have to wait and see. So you guys will be getting lots of updates about this because I love it. I'm not sure, it's kind of going that way, again, wind, so I may have to stake it just to encourage it to get tall. We'll see. But also, there's all sorts of bulbs in this area, so very soon we're going to start getting kind of tulips and things coming up. The anemones in here are already coming up. Anemone, doo 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 doo. You'll only get that if you're in the UK, I think. No, actually you won't. Muppets, anemone, doo doo doo. No, never mind. Okay, so that's the container garden. We've got the rosemary's looking awesome. The Nugerian impatiens are still flowering. Normally these died months ago. They're still going. So yeah, things look untidy, but stop thinking everything's dead because it's not. Right, where do you want to go next? Shall we do the greenhouse next, or should I call it the glass house? Meet you there. I forgot to mention, look, the African daisies. So, it's not as easy to get in here anymore, and it's not as empty as last time you were in here. In fact, it's even more full than you think, but give me a second and we'll talk about that. Because first, sorry, they were getting different notes. Sorry, that kind of thing amuses me. So, yes, we have got stuff planted up. So, it's hard to do negatives in the greenhouse because you know me in the greenhouse, but I don't know if I can even show you this on camera, so some of it may have to be down to trust, but I don't know if you can see how warped this is. If I do that, you can see it from the reflections. Yes, so, but I've actually got stuff going in here. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'll show you as well. You guys know I did my experiment with the herbs in here. My plan was to keep the herbs going in here. Technically, they're still going. They're not looking great though. We've had some serious cold snaps, which is what spurred me on to try doing the bubble wrap. But the basil's looking really, really poorly, and every time you look at it, leaves fall off it. The tarragon is looking a bit rubbish. They're still going, they're still alive. They're not really grown, they've kind of pretty much gone almost dormant, which you kind of expect because it's cold this time of year. But yeah, it was a wee experiment to see. So luckily, I've still got the tarragon and the heather. No, I don't. Tarragon and the basil on the window ledge in the kitchen. I don't know why I said heather. We don't even have any heather in the back garden. Yeah, so tarragon and the basil are on the kitchen ledge. They're not amazing because it's still cold, it's still winter, what have you, but they're better than the ones that are out here. So yeah, I'm glad I took them in. But what I've also got going in here, you can see, so this is called a sun tunnel. It's basically a giant propagator. It's quite thin, it's not as tough as these guys, but it's handy because of its size. And I do the double bag thing. Now, I do have a video where I talk about all of this stuff, so if you're new and haven't seen those, I'll put a link up there. Look, I'm getting good at this because it's watch a video, so I remember. So I'll put a link up here to the video where I talk about handy things like the propagators and how I use them in spring, and things like reading the seed packets and the hardiness zones. Because, you know, we may as well use winter to learn all this useful stuff for next year. Because I know a lot of you guys just joined us as new gardeners recently. So there's a whole heap of all that stuff back there if you haven't noticed. But in here I have got this one, double bagged, propagator inside propagator, as much kind of controlling that temperature as I can. It's not going to be hot, but it means it's not going to get super cold either. So I'm trying to steal a degree or two where I can here. In this one we have got, ta-da, all the foxgloves. So that is the foxglove seeds that I took from the plants and I sowed, so they're in there. We've got the carrots that I sowed in here. You can see how much better they've come on than the beds. So they're here. I'll put the lid back. On this side, we've got the tarragon cuttings I took, got the basil cuttings I took, and I had to go at some of the blackcurrant sage. So I don't know if that's going to work or not. Now, I know I promised you guys that I would go through a video on propagation and taking cuttings. I am going to do it. What I'm going to do for you is I'm actually going to do a series of videos all about this type of stuff. But I'm going to start it in the winter time, okay, when we can't really do a lot of this type of stuff. But I'm going to start it off about talking about the theory behind it all and the knowledge that is really useful going forward. And then as the season changes and we start getting into whether we can be doing this, you're going to be so sorted and brilliant at this. So, series coming up, I'm going to call it the propagation station, because you guys all seem to like this when I put pictures on Instagram. This is my propagation station. It's just little glass jars that you put water in and you can put plants in and they grow roots. But yeah, I thought it was a cool name for a video series. Yeah. Right, okay, I'm going to turn you round because this place, remember I said it's a lot fuller than you think? So, I've nowhere to lean now because there's propagators everywhere, like this. This is the big hydrangea from the centre of the lawn, okay? And what I was finding was happening was I was just focusing on the flowers that had died, okay? And I wasn't noticing there's all this new growth here, all the new flowers and what have you. I wasn't noticing the amazing colour as the leaves as they turn, okay? Again, I'm going to do a whole video talking about this, so that's why I'm doing it very, very quickly just now. But yeah, so this guy was a lot smaller last year. I had 4 of these in here last year. Can't fit them in this year. This guy's a lot bigger. Kate had to bring him in for me because obviously I couldn't lift this. So that was quite amusing. And this is my little guy here. So, big picture. Stop focusing on all the negatives of autumn and start really looking for the good stuff, the cool stuff, the heartwarming stuff. Right now, we've got goldfinches, blackbirds, robins, magpies, collared doves, chaffinches, coletits, dunnocks and sparrows, all in our garden all the time. It's awesome. So I'm enjoying feeding the birds and photographing the birds and all that kind of stuff just now. So I'm going to say ta-ra for now for this video. Next week's video we're going to talk about the whole hydrangea thing, and I'm going to explain how you look after them, get them through winter so that you can get the best looking hydrangeas for next year. And I will update you on what's going on with everything as well. But from me, who's much, much healthier, and again, thank you so much, guys. You were all so lovely looking out for me in the last couple of weeks. It was awesome. Gave me lots of smiles. But I'll see you next week. Bye!